Gene Deal just broke his silence, and what he's claiming is wild. That Netflix documentary about Diddy everyone's been talking about? According to Gene, the footage he brought in was so explosive they couldn't even use it. Now he says he's ready to drop everything 50 Cent couldn't show, and if it's true, this could flip the whole narrative. You clicked this because you wanted the real story, the raw, uncut version, and that's exactly what Gene says he's delivering. As Diddy's former bodyguard, who was around for a lot of major moments, he finally sat down for an interview and made it clear he's done staying quiet. Here's the rundown. Gene claims he was supposed to be in the Netflix doc from day one. He says he talked with 50 Cent for about 45 minutes, everything was lined up, until things allegedly went left when the director disrespected him. Gene walked out, and now he's revealing the stories that never made it on screen. And some of these accusations are intense. He says he's ready to speak on the City College tragedy, Anthony Wolf Jones, what he believes really happened with Kim Porter, and even why certain big-name celebrities supposedly wanted no part of that documentary. Everything 50 Cent couldn't include, Gene says he's bringing here with no filters. But before we get into the alleged receipts, you gotta understand what was happening behind the scenes. Because this situation was way more heated than anyone realized. 50 Cent and Netflix just dropped Sean Combs' The Reckoning, and it shot straight to #1. Everybody's watching it, everybody's arguing about it. But here's what most people don't know. Some major stories never made it into the final cut, and according to Gene Deal, the stuff that got left out is where things get real. Gene, who spent years as Diddy's bodyguard, was around for everything. The parties, the chaos, the business moves, the danger, and the emotional fallout. He says he's been holding on to footage and receipts for years, waiting for the right moment to finally lay out his side of the story.
Don't even be silent. I want to put her on blast because she was telling me, she was saying to me that what I was asking for was crazy and they wasn't spending money like that. I'm talking about you got footage, you got clothing, I was doing footage, I had pictures, all the stuff that I had, you could figure out a way to pay a brother and stuff like that. And then I was telling her about some prices that I've already received and I had the invoices to show it. And then she was calling me like I was lying. I'm like, yo, who do you think you talking to? You know what I'm saying? And she was talking about, there's no way nobody paid. Nobody what? I say, first of all you people come with these documentaries and stuff, the first thing you tell me, y'all tell these people out here that y'all don't pay, and y'all pay. If you can make a picture look like $10,000, $15,000, you know what I'm saying? You can sit here and tell me that you're gonna pay me for my time sitting right down here with y'all. You understand? So then, one thing led to another, and I was like, yo, all right, well then, F you, I spoke to 50, and then she said 50, and this is exact words that came out her mouth. 50 does not determine what goes in and goes out of this documentary.
At first, Gene actually wanted to be part of 50 Cent's documentary. He thought it was finally time for the full truth to come out. But when he sat down with director Alex Stapleton, he says the meeting went left fast. Gene came in ready to cooperate, but the vibe changed, and he decided the project wasn't going the way he expected. Gene says he wanted to approach this the right way. He tried bringing in two people who knew Diddy from day one, Tim and Kirk Burrows. Together, they could have laid down the entire timeline, from the early hustle days to the street era to the empire Diddy eventually built. That would have been the full blueprint. Gene says he asked for $50,000 for all three of them as a package deal. And considering the stories and historical context they could provide, he felt that price was more than fair. But this is where everything takes a sharp left turn. According to Gene, director Alex Stapleton hit him with something unexpected. She allegedly told him that 50 Cent had zero control over the documentary. Not the budget, not the payments, not even who gets included. She claimed his name was mostly there to boost the project. Gene took that as major disrespect. He even showed her invoices from past documentaries to explain his usual rate. But instead of hearing him out, Gene says she accused him of lying, which shocked him. From his point of view, he spent years protecting Diddy, witnessed intense situations, kept notes and footage, and now someone was acting like he was making things up. To him, that was wild. And it didn't stop there. While Gene was trying to secure a fair deal for all three men, he later found out that Kirk Burrows was allegedly negotiating his own separate deal on the low. That's the industry. Everybody trying to carve their own lane. Gene wanted one unified agreement, but Kirk was already moving behind the scenes. So Gene walked away. He chose not to be part of the documentary, and that's why many viewers feel like certain pieces are missing. because the person who claims to hold the deepest timeline and receipts wasn't involved.
What I feel about the documentary, they left a whole lot of key things out. If they was gonna do something and they're gonna say in the reckoning of Sean Combs, the reckoning, or Diddy, the reckoning and stuff like that, it should have been a lot of people that we lost because of him. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't only Big, it wasn't only Tupac, you understand? For the atmosphere that he put those kids in. You got a guy named Anthony Wolf Jones, who was from Bad Boy, from its conception as doing security and being one of the financiers of Puff having to have some money to keep Big and Craig Mack around before he got to Clyde David.
Now Gene says he's ready to reveal everything that didn't make it onto Netflix. Let's get into something the documentary barely touched: how Bad Boy Records was really set up, because this piece explains a lot. Kirk Burrows, the same guy we mentioned earlier, says he owned 25% of Bad Boy from day one, while Diddy held the other 75%. But here's the twist Gene points out: the company wasn't in Diddy's name. It was reportedly under his mother, Janice Combs. Why structure it like that? Gene claims it was done to shield Diddy from legal liability. And once you hear the context, the whole picture starts making sense. Before Bad Boy took off, Diddy already expected lawsuits after the City College tragedy, an event where 9 adults lost their lives. Their families were preparing legal action, and Gene believes that's why Diddy didn't attach his own name to the company. Cold business move, but definitely strategic. But things didn't stop there. Gene says Diddy later wanted Kirk's 25% as well, and according to what Kirk himself stated in the documentary, Diddy allegedly showed up with a baseball bat, threatened him, and forced him to sign over his share. Kirk later tried suing in 2003, but the case was dismissed because too much time had passed. Just sit with that for a moment. Kirk helped build Bad Boy from the ground up: the branding, the vision, the early grind. And according to his own account, he lost everything through intimidation and pressure. Kirk even said he ended up homeless at one point, while Diddy went on to become a billionaire off the empire they originally built together. The documentary mentioned this whole situation, but they barely tapped into it. Gene Deal says he could have laid out the entire story: how Bad Boy was structured, why Diddy allegedly put the company under his mother's name, and how the whole setup connected back to legal pressure. None of that made the final cut, and it really makes you wonder what got left on the table. But here's where things get dark. Gene claims the documentary skipped an entire storyline involving Anthony Wolf Jones, a name with real weight in hip-hop history. Wolf was Bad Boy's head of security from the early days, long before the fame and the mainstream deals. He was one of Diddy's most loyal protectors, and according to Gene, he knew everything happening behind the curtain. Wolf, as Gene describes it, knew who handled what, who got paid, and what went down at certain private events, the type of stuff people only whisper about. And Gene alleges that Diddy's decisions played a role in the chain of events that eventually lined up with Wolf's death. That's a heavy claim, and Gene says it with full seriousness. Gene also insists the documentary team either didn't have the right intel or avoided going deeper. Wolf was killed in a situation involving someone tied to BMF, the Black Mafia family, a group with a long, complicated history in hip-hop culture. Gene believes there's a clear connection between Wolf's death and the bigger story surrounding Diddy, but Netflix barely gave Wolf a moment. A couple photos, a quick mention, and they moved on. And why skip something this major? Gene suggests it's because this is dangerous territory. Real violence, real criminal networks, and real consequences. Netflix didn't want that kind of heat, and 50 Cent probably wasn't trying to spark something that could spill into real life either. But Gene Deal says the story has to be told, because in his view, Wolf's death wasn't random. It connects to everything happening behind the scenes. Now here's where the story gets heated. The documentary mentioned the City College tragedy, but according to Gene Deal, they didn't come close to showing the full picture. Gene says he was there that night, saw everything firsthand, and his account completely shifts how people understand what happened.
You seen that the documentary, the 50 Cent
No, I haven't seen it yet.
for Diddy?
I haven't seen it.
Oh man, you working
Everybody
hard.
telling me you got to see it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah,
Part of me don't want to see it
you probably don't.
because it's all skewed, man. Like when you put stuff together, you create whatever narratives you want to, and at the end of the day, everybody being programmed. You know, right now the man's serving time.
Right.
You know, he went before the court. The court said this, and everything is God. But God said this is what he got to do. He got to do 5 years in pen. Let him do his 5 years.
December 28th, 1991. Diddy helped organize a celebrity charity basketball event at City College in New York. And what went down inside that building changed lives forever. This was supposed to be a major charity showcase. Heavy D was involved, big names were pulling up, and the energy was electric. Mike Tyson, LL Cool J, The place was packed wall to wall with people expecting something legendary. Gene says his security team was originally hired to manage the outside crowd. He brought 18 trained men, dogs, gates, the whole setup to keep things controlled. He knew how wild Harlem could get when celebrities showed up, so he prepared like a pro. But according to Gene, the day before the event, Diddy pulled him aside and told him Heavy D didn't want his team working security anymore. Just like that, Gene says his whole crew was removed. No outside security at all. So when the night finally hit, things spiraled fast. Thousands of people pushed toward the entrance. And when Mike Tyson and LL Cool J came through the front instead of using the back access, Gene says the crowd surged instantly, bodies pushing forward, stairwells turning into danger zones within seconds. Now here's a part the documentary didn't mention at all. Gene Deal says there was a promoter named Jessica Rosenblum working alongside Diddy and Heavy D that night. When the crowd began to surge, Gene claims Jessica panicked, but not about the people getting crushed in the stairwell. According to him, her focus was on the cash box from ticket sales. Gene says she grabbed the box and locked the door at the bottom of the stairs to protect the money. And when that door locked, it trapped hundreds of adults in a narrow stairwell with no space to move, breathe, or escape.
Jessica, you know what I'm saying? Jessica was the reason why those kids lost their life, because she locked the door on those kids running down the step. You understand? You could see her name in a news article, but they didn't mention nothing about her taking place, but they try to put Heavy D, God bless the dead, out there and they put Puff out there. You know what I'm saying? She should have been the main one because she is the one who locked the door on the kids. You understand? She is the one who locked the door on the kids, and all those kids lost.
That detail, if true, changes the entire timeline. 9 adults lost their lives that night, crushed in that stairwell after the crowd surge. Gene says he couldn't even reach the stairs because the crowd was packed so tight. He had to circle the entire gym, find another entrance, and start forcing doors open from the inside. By the time he fought his way through, it was already too late. Gene also says he performed CPR on one of the victims. Someone reported at the time as a teenage attendee, but they didn't survive. Gene remembers the victim's older brother crying, saying, "This is the first time I ever took my little brother anywhere. My mom is gonna kill me." Gene says those moments are burned into his memory. And here's what still shocks people today. Jessica Rosenblum's name appears in old news reports as one of the event promoters, but she never faced consequences. No charges, no accountability. The documentary skimmed the City College tragedy, but focused almost entirely on Diddy and Heavy D. They never explored Jessica's alleged role, never explained why Gene's whole security team was removed the day before, and never mentioned a door being locked while 9 adults lost their lives. Gene says he tried to explain all of this in the documentary, every detail, every angle, but none of it made the final cut. And once you hear what happened behind the scenes, you really start to question why. Now let's get into why Gene actually walked away, because the off-camera drama was just as wild as the stories he wanted to expose. Gene had set up a package deal, himself, Tim, and Kirk Burrows. 3 men who understood Diddy from completely different worlds. Tim knew the childhood and early career days. Kirk understood the business structure from the inside. Gene saw the street side, the security issues, the violence, the pressure, and the behind-the-scenes chaos. Together, they could have delivered the full, unfiltered timeline. But according to Gene, director Alex Stapleton started moving in a way that made him question everything. Gene says she told him the price he asked for was crazy money, like his experience wasn't worth the budget. He even showed invoices from past documentaries paying him in that same range, actual paperwork, and she still dismissed it. Then she dropped the line that really set him off. She told Gene that 50 Cent doesn't control anything that goes into the documentary. According to Gene, she said 50 doesn't decide the payouts, doesn't approve who gets included, and that his name was mainly being used to promote the project. Think about that. The whole documentary is marketed as 50 Cent's big expose on Diddy, built on their rivalry, hyped around his brand. But behind closed doors, Gene was being told 50 had no real creative power. That's wild. Gene felt played. He's been telling these stories for years on his own platform, and he's got receipts, footage, photos, documents, first-hand experience.
That footage of Diddy.
I figure most journalists would not disclose their sources.
Does he know y'all have this in the doc?
I would doubt he knows.
So when this airs, that'll be the first time that his legal team, Diddy, that everybody knows that this footage is now seeing the light of day. Perhaps.
But he says the director treated him like he didn't matter, like he was just another voice trying to jump into the spotlight. Meanwhile, Gene says Kirk Burrows was making his own quiet moves. Kirk kept calling Gene, pushing him to lower his price and take whatever they offer. But Gene eventually found out Kirk was negotiating a separate contract behind everyone's back, looking out for himself while acting like he was still part of the team. That's the industry for you. When the money shows up, people start choosing their own lane. So Gene walked away. Completely. And that's why the documentary feels incomplete. That's why major stories never made it in. The one guy who had the deepest timeline, the receipts, and the inside access refused to participate because he felt disrespected from the start. A lot of viewers also noticed something else right away. The documentary barely mentioned Kim Porter. Kim was Diddy's former partner and the mother of 3 of his children. She passed away in 2018 at just 47, officially from pneumonia, but her story raised questions because she was around Diddy for years and saw everything: the parties, the business moves, the tensions, the lifestyle. Yet in the documentary, she gets just a quick mention before they move on. That struck many viewers as strange. According to multiple reports, the filmmakers avoided going deeper into Kim's story because it was considered too sensitive and too risky to explore on camera. Gene says he knew Kim personally. He worked security around her, protected her during certain moments, and had his own experiences and information related to her life. But none of that made the final cut. Hay flashed a couple photos of Kim, mentioned she was the mother of Diddy's children, and kept it moving. For someone who played such a major role in his life, you'd expect a lot more coverage, unless there was a reason they didn't want that part of the story in the spotlight. Now let's get into something that raises eyebrows. Diddy hosted massive parties for decades, packed with actors, artists, athletes, executives, even political names. These events were legendary. Everybody wanted an invite. That was Diddy's whole brand, the man who could get anyone in the room. So here's the question. Why doesn't the documentary show any of those celebrities? No interviews, no commentary, nothing from the people who used to proudly show up at his events. For a story centered around nightlife and celebrity culture, the silence is weird. And why aren't there any real accounts of what went down at those parties? Are we supposed to believe Diddy hosted huge events for years and not one well-known guest ever ended up in a situation worth mentioning? That doesn't sound realistic to a lot of people. Gene Deal believes some high-profile figures wanted to keep their names far away from anything connected to the investigation around Diddy. And while it's speculation, some people think these celebrities may have requested, or even paid, to stay out of the spotlight to protect their careers, families, and reputations. Gene talks about this openly, but the documentary avoids it completely. From Gene's point of view, 50 Cent is a businessman first. He wasn't trying to drag unrelated celebrities into the mess. He wanted the documentary focused on Diddy, not on every person who ever showed up at a party. But if certain names were kept out intentionally, then what we saw was a polished, controlled version of events, something cleaned up to avoid pointing at anybody with real power. Gene says he can see those gaps loud and clear. And speaking of celebrities staying quiet, look at Marlon Wayans' reaction to the doc. Someone asked if he watched it, and his answer had people talking. Marlon said he hasn't seen it and probably won't. Then he called it a narrative. He said with the right editing, you can shape any story you want. And then he added, everybody's being programmed. That line had folks raising eyebrows immediately. Why would Marlon say that? Is he defending Diddy? Suggesting the documentary is biased? Or hinting he's seen things himself and doesn't want to get involved publicly? There have been whispered industry rumors about Marlon for years. Nothing confirmed, just quiet talk. And when he refuses to watch the documentary and starts mentioning narratives and programming, it makes people wonder what he's really implying. Gene Deal says he has stories involving plenty of celebrities, things he witnessed personally. But many didn't want their names anywhere near the documentary. Their silence alone says a lot. Now let's get into one of the most explosive parts of this entire situation, the private footage of Diddy before his arrest. This is the material that had everyone asking the same question. Where did 50 Cent even get this? The documentary shows Diddy in a New York hotel room, talking with his lawyer on speakerphone, reacting to the media, strategizing, trying to figure out his next move. Super personal, behind-the-scenes moments that were never meant to go public. According to what's been said, Diddy hired a videographer to document that entire period of his life. Maybe it was for a future project. Maybe he wanted a record of everything happening. Nobody really knows the exact reason. But someone was definitely filming him nonstop. The key point is this. Footage like that is typically considered Diddy's property. The videographer would have been under contract, under NDAs, meaning none of it was supposed to leave Diddy's inner circle. But somehow 50 Cent ended up with it, and that's when everything exploded into a legal mess. Diddy's lawyers immediately sent Netflix a cease and desist, calling the footage unauthorized and insisting it was never meant for public release. They even demanded Netflix remove the entire documentary from the platform. Netflix pushed back, saying they got the footage through legal channels, but they didn't explain how. didn't name who provided it, and didn't share any details. And 50 Cent hasn't revealed the source either. That silence just made the whole situation feel even more mysterious. Meanwhile, the videographer hasn't spoken publicly, so nobody really knows how the footage got out. One theory people talk about is that he may have sold it because he allegedly wasn't paid. That's a rumor that floats around. Gene has said in interviews that Diddy sometimes had issues paying certain people on time, so some folks think the videographer might have felt burned and decided to flip the footage as payback. Others speculate someone connected to the project quietly leaked it, or that 50 obtained it through a third party. But again, all speculation, nothing confirmed. Whatever the truth is, the way that footage surfaced still feels shady to a lot of people, and it raises major questions about how the rest of the documentary was put together. Gene also talks about moments where he personally witnessed aggressive behavior from Diddy. Again, Gene's claims, not proven facts. One story he shares involves Misa Hilton, the mother of Diddy's first son, Justin. After Gene stopped working for Diddy, Misa allegedly asked him to protect her during nights out because she felt uncomfortable and worried about how Diddy might react if he saw her with someone else. Gene charged her $2,250 for a few hours of protection and told her straight up that if Diddy pulled up, nothing would happen, because Diddy knew Gene wasn't scared of anybody. The documentary features a segment with rapper-producer Eric Sermon. Eric describes a moment, his own account, when he was in a car with Misa and Diddy allegedly confronted her. Eric claims Diddy swung at Misa and then told him to come around the corner to fight. Eric says he didn't engage, he just left and went to listen to music. Gene says that situation blows his mind because if someone was in his car and got confronted publicly like that, he would have stepped in immediately. He also says industry whispers about Diddy having issues with aggressive behavior had been circulating for years. Again, allegations and personal accounts, not court-proven facts, but many stayed quiet because Diddy had influence, connections, and serious resources. Gene brings these stories up because he believes they're important pieces of the puzzle, pieces the documentary didn't dig into. That's why he feels the public still hasn't heard the full picture. Then there's the hotel hallway footage of Diddy and Cassie, the clip that stunned the world. But Gene says that kind of behavior wasn't new at all. In his view, it had been going on for decades. The only difference this time was that the camera clip leaked, and that leak changed everything. So after all this, what does Gene Deal actually think of the documentary? He says he watched it closely, took notes, and studied every angle. His reaction? Pretty harsh. Gene believes most of what the documentary covered was material insiders already whispered about. The wild nights, the controlling behavior, the messy incidents. To him, none of it was surprising. It was just packaged in a way regular viewers could finally understand. The only part Gene found genuinely interesting was that private footage of Diddy before his arrest. The clips of him stressing, talking with lawyers, and trying to figure out his next move. Gene says that was the valuable material, because the rest felt like surface-level storytelling meant for casual viewers. He says once you watch the documentary once, that's it. There's nothing deep enough to rewatch, nothing that digs into the roots or exposes the real machine behind the scenes. And Gene believes he could have taken the entire project to a different level. He had the depth, the stories, the receipts, the first-hand accounts, but in his opinion, they didn't want that kind of intensity on camera. From Gene's perspective, Netflix wanted something safe, something that would trend, pull big numbers, and focus everything on Diddy without dragging powerful people into the spotlight. Diddy is framed as the only villain in the story, but Gene says that's nowhere close to the full truth. According to him, plenty of people in those circles witnessed things, stayed quiet, or even participated in behavior that should have raised questions. And none of their names appeared in the documentary. Their identities stayed protected, their stories stayed hidden, and that's why Gene calls the project incomplete. He says the public got a slice of the truth while the bigger players stayed in the shadows. Here's what you need to understand. Gene Deal has been sharing these stories for years, long before Netflix, long before 50 Cent got involved. He's been on podcasts, interviews, YouTube shows, breaking down what he witnessed, what he lived through, and what he believes people deserve to know. He's been consistent, and he's been loud about it. Now I want to hear from you. Which story hit you the hardest? Which part do you think 50 Cent should have included to make the documentary feel real and complete? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's spark a real convo about all this. Thanks for rocking with Mike Tripp. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, and comment to keep the channel growing. More deep dives are coming your way, so stay locked in and stay aware out there.